Hi, I'm Tim Waggoner, and I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my Stoker-nominated story, A Touch of Madness, which first appeared in the Pulp Horror Book of Phobias, edited by M.J. Sidney. She'd been walking non-stop since her mother left, and she was tired and sweaty. And while the campus was pleasant for the most part, there was a lot of construction going on. Parking lots being resurfaced, buildings being remodeled, and that meant noise. Machines running, tools striking metal and concrete, people shouting to each other as they worked. She wanted someplace quiet where she could sit in peace for a bit, preferably in the shade. She was on the verge of saying to hell with it and going back to the science center and attending the stupid workshop when she saw the red dumpster. It contained odds and ends from campus construction, chunks of broken concrete, lengths of discarded wood. It was in no way remarkable. She'd seen a dozen like it during her self-guided tour of the campus so far. But what was remarkable was what lay behind it. She almost missed it, so completely did the dumpster block the view. But there was a tiny sliver of space between the side of the dumpster and an old oak tree, and through it she caught a glimpse of what looked like a fountain. Intrigued, she slipped past the dumpster and found herself standing in an entrance to, well, she wasn't sure what it was exactly. A place for people to sit, relax, and think, she supposed. A stone fountain sat atop the third level of a dais, a curving half-circle of stone wall behind it with an arched open doorway in the middle. Wooden benches rested on either side of the doorway where people could sit and watch the fountain and listen to the gentle trickle of water. The water bubbled up from the center of a large round stone surface to flow over the edges and into a pool beneath. The water emerged from the edge of the dais in a small waterfall surrounded by large stones placed to look like a natural formation. Trees surrounded the fountain, separating it from the rest of the world, making it seem as if it were a place out of a fairy tale, a secluded, magical setting that only a lucky few ever found. There was shade here, along with a pleasant breeze, and the sound of the gently rustling tree leaves, combined with running water, soothed Christina. She knew where she'd be spending the rest of the time until her mother came to get her. Then she looked to the left of the fountain and saw the statue. Her parents had both been raised Catholic, but they weren't religious. Ash Creek University was a private Catholic institution with a reputation for academic excellence, and that was the only reason her parents had come here for their undergraduate degrees. Christina sometimes wondered if they still considered themselves Catholic, culturally, if not spiritually. They took her to Christmas Eve and Easter Mass every year to broaden her horizons, they said, and on the way home they give her a speech about how religion was nothing more than a way to instill moral values in its followers by using metaphor and symbolism, and it wasn't to be taken literally. Thanks to her broadened horizon, she recognized the statue as the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus. Mary stood atop a granite pedestal, bare feet sticking out from beneath the hem of her robe. She held her hands out before her, fingers steepled as if praying, her hood-covered head bowed. There was no expression on her face. Her eyes were closed, and her mouth was little more than a line with only a suggestion of lips. But the detail that stood out the most to Christina was what looked like a thick reptilian tail protruding from the back of her robe and curling around her left foot. She frowned upon seeing the tail, for if that's what it had to be, couldn't be anything else. She was no expert on Catholic theology, but she felt confident that Mary wasn't supposed to have a lizard's tail. There was something written on the granite base the statue stood on, and she walked over to read it. It was a single word, Pandemonia. And beneath that, in smaller letters, a quote, "If there is a universal mind, who says it has to be sane?" Charles Fort. Was this some kind of weird piece of art, or maybe a joke of some kind? And then the tail twitched. Just the tip, and it happened so fast she wasn't sure she'd really seen it. She looked up at the statue's face, and ice-cold fear hit her when she saw its eyes were now open. They weren't the same gray-white as the rest of the statue, though. Instead, they were a glossy obsidian, and while she could read nothing within their empty blackness, she could feel the weight of the statue's gaze upon her. "You do well to shun the false god of science, child." The statue's thin mouth didn't move. Its voice, cold as midnight and dry as ancient bone, echoed in her mind. "Science pretends there is order to existence, that for every question there is an answer. This is a lie. Existence is random and meaningless, and that is glorious."
Hi, this is Sarah Reed, and I am going to read a short bit from my nominated fiction collection, Out of Water. I'm going to read from the story Tall Grass, Shallow Water. Mothers say, Stay clear of the water. At least the good ones do. The kids say dip a toe in and Jenny will grab you. Maybe some Jennies grab. Maybe some Jennies have to. But my Jenny never did. All her daughters were gifts. All her girls were given. The other mothers say nothing. They put their daughters in the water. Mother wrapped me in a long piece of linen and laid me in water not deep enough to be dark, but deep enough. The sky was low and worried, and the tall grasses wove their shadows over me like a blanket. It was Jenny that found me and took me for her own, raised me up in a world of weeds and wet and swamp rot. When I was old enough to follow directions, but still young enough to follow directions, she named me Laura Lee and sent me back to Mother. Bring me meat, she said, and tied a tangled fish line around my ankle. Girls have to eat, and mothers should feed their daughters. It's the way of things. Bring her to me, and she shall feed you, as she always should have done. Bring Mother to the water, and you shall have meat. But the memory of Mother's face was rippled with green water. Any weeping mother will do if the tears are ripe, Jenny said. When Jenny laughed, her teeth rattled like bone dice in a horn cup. She softens the sound with slick packs of algae pressed into the dark spaces of her mouth. It roots there, multiplies like weeds in a garden. Hurry, girl. Bring me gristle to clean my mouth. She said it shouldn't take long. All mothers weep, she said. That's their secret. Find one whose secret is dark, like the center of the water. Find one with eyes like a river. Dark meat, stringy meat. That will clean my teeth. The line around my ankle is tight enough to squeeze, but not to cut. It whispers through the tall grass behind me. The kids hear it drag across the ground, but the mothers don't. The kids call me Laura Lee Hiss on account of it. None of their mothers weep. Their meat is too soft for Jenny's teeth. Every day I spend away from the water, the line on my ankle pulls a little deeper. We don't see you in school, Hiss, the boy called Andrew says. His voice is not unkind. I don't go to school, I say. You have to go to school. It's the law. Or your parents get in trouble. He kicks a trench in the sand under the swing. The deep sand is wet, the way anything deep is always wet. I don't have parents, I tell him, and he stops his swing mid-kick. Oh, he says. He digs deeper to even wetter sand. Do you want to see how high I can go? I say yes, and he soars over his damp sand pit, hair straight back and bare knees kissing the sky. Andrew's mother hardly ever weeps. Her meat is as soft as snails. 3 days in, and my foot below the fish line has turned the color of deep water. I lie in a trench of cool sand under the swings, wiggling my fingers into the earth, seeking moisture, seeking home. Andrew comes over, kicking sand up behind his heels. His cheeks are pink from the sun. He slips his legs over the swing and kicks away from the ground. His dry-eyed mother stands in the shade of a tree, tapping at a phone. Do you really not have parents, Hiss? Andrew's voice whips across me as he swings past. Well, I did once, I guess. Not now, though. I'm looking for a mom, but she has to be a sad one. Why sad? Jenny says they're stronger. Who's Jenny? You ask a lot of questions. You sound like my mom. He leaps from the swing as it arcs forward and lands in a splash of sand. I squeeze my eyes shut as the grains rain down on me. He looks to his mother, grinning, but she's still staring at the phone, the glowing screen broadcasted in the reflection on her glasses, some brightly colored game. Do you live here at the park? He bends to retie his shoe. No, maybe, for now. Is it cold? Not as cold as the water. I pull the long linen strip around my neck closer, tuck it into my collar. You know, Kyle's mother is sad. I lift my chin from the stained linen wrap and pull my fingers from the sand. You know a sad mom? I guess she's not a mom anymore. You can't ever be not a mom anymore, no matter how hard you try. That's what Jenny says. Well, she cries a lot. I rise from the sand and walk to Andrew. The line at my ankle tugs. Andrew backs up a step, leaves his shoe undone. Where is she? The red house on 5th. The one with the new tire swing out front. Which way is that? Andrew points past his mother, out across an overgrown soccer field. Tire's still got all the white paint on it. Never been used. Mom won't let me try it. You should ride it anyway, I say. Andrew's mother looks up at me as I pass her. Could be she hears the hiss of Jenny's line. Maybe she smells the fen. But her phone beeps and she turns back to it. Lights are seductive, in the bog and in the hand. Kyle's mother's house is only mostly red and partly the gray of old wood where red used to be. The swing hangs from the tree, limp as Spanish moss. Wasps hover around it, darting in and out of the dark hollow of the tube. The door knocker hangs from one hinge, the other fallen loose as if someone had knocked too hard, and then no one had. I pinch the narrow bar and tap it against the metal plate and wait. The whole house seems to creak as movement comes alive inside. Filaments of spiders' webs fall away as Kyle's mom opens the door. Her eyes are wide and brown, with golden sclera and heavy red lids. Her dark hair wraps her ears in wild wisps. She drops her gaze to mine, and thin lips pinch shut over yellow teeth. She pulls a heavy sweater close against the late August heat. Yes? Her eyes rise over my head and scan the street. Are you Kyle's mom? Her eyes shoot back to me. The bottom lids tremble and fill. Yeah, she says, I'm Shannon. Were you a friend of Kyle's? Her eyes spill over and her voice hitches. I don't remember you. I'm sorry. Kyle's gone. Her hands rise to cover the collapse of her face. My ankle throbs. I step up to the weeping woman and raise my arms to her. She pulls her wet hands from her face and wraps her arms around my shoulders. And Jenny pulls. And Kyle's mother screams. And Jenny reels us in. So that's the first part of that story. Thanks very much.